Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am not a failed radio DJ. I am the CMO of Brandwatch, Will McInnes, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar. We are going to be talking about social consumer insights today. And I'm delighted to have with us Melissa Parrish, who is a VP and Principal Analyst at the well-admired firm Forrester Research.
Hi, everybody. It's nice to speak with you all. I'm so glad to see so many attendees here today.
Thank you, Melissa. It's great to have you here. So, guys, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about something I think that's dear to all of our hearts, which is the evolution of a social marketing strategy. And in particular, we've got two halves to that story. We want to get really into consumer insights because more and more here at Brandwatch, we're one of the leading social intelligence companies in the world, and we see that the most interesting work often done by our clients is in the field of consumer insights. And I think that's really interesting as a marketer myself, is how the world of marketing is evolving and how the world of research is evolving to really take advantage of this huge new giant radar that we've got in the form of social media. So the two halves that we're going to run through, Melissa's going to kick us off, and she's going to be speaking about specifically how can social intelligence impact business decisions. So she's going to take a kind of strategic perspective of the evolution of that strategy. And then I'm hoping to sweep in afterwards and to give you some practical insights on how we're seeing some of our clients specifically using social intelligence for the consumer insights work. So here you have the agenda. We've got some time for Q&A at the end. But to move on, I'd love to invite your participation. If you have any questions, please at Brandwatch or use the exciting hashtag BrandwatchTips. We can't have a webinar or a social media discussion without a hashtag, let's face it. So please do chip in with your questions. Let's get cracking, and you're all on mute, unfortunately, but I'd like to imagine that you're all clapping with a warm round of encouraging applause to get our analyst here, Melissa, going with her section.
Excellent, thank you. I will assume that I'm speaking to thunderous applause as well. As Will mentioned, I'm Melissa Parrish. I'm a Vice President here at Forrester. I lead a team that covers two primary things: social marketing in all of its aspects and digital advertising, believe it or not. And those two things are starting to come together more and more, as is social and everything else. So what I'm going to speak with you about today is this idea that you see on the title slide here, letting go of this dogmatic approach to, quote, social marketing. Because when you think about it, social is really not just a marketing strategy. Social is much more than marketing. So what I mean when I say let go of your, quote, social marketing strategy is that you need to let go of the idea that social only has an impact on marketing, and instead think about how you can have a marketing strategy that social helps you achieve, and how you can have a business strategy that social can help you achieve. Sorry, I've got a little lag with the slides advancing. I'll try to make sure I'm paying attention to that. If you think of just social marketing and are not thinking about the business strategy and how it is informed by social, you're going to miss out on a lot of rich data and insights and strategic work that you really could be using to advance your business, because the true value of social is in people. There has never been a technology that more completely connects people to each other and brands with people and vice versa. So in this world of the age of the customer, customer obsession, customer experience, customer centricity, what better technology to use to get to know and to engage your customers at all levels of your business than social? The thing about social is that when we engage in social media, either as brands or just as people, just as people, as if that is something to be minimized. We have to remember that people are having conversations. Sometimes these are visual conversations, and sometimes these are normal text-based conversations. But when people are having conversations, especially in large volume, you need technology as a brand to be able to understand what's happening in those conversations, and that is the basic premise of social listening, as you all know. It's about getting an ear to the ground so that you know what people are saying or about your brand. The interesting thing here is that it started out, social listening really began with just monitoring for brand mentions, looking to see how many times people are talking about you, maybe responding every once in a while, and measuring that all-important sentiment, all of which still happens today. But as brands have embraced social listening and made the pivot to what we prefer to call social intelligence, they have gotten much smarter about using the data that they collect through these social listening programs. And that's where social listening becomes, for us at Forrester, social intelligence. What you see here is the social intelligence life cycle that we talk about. It's no longer just about this academic exercise of getting a bunch of social listening data and seeing, oh, wasn't that interesting, a bunch of people were talking about X, or most people are having positive conversations about us. Social listening becomes social intelligence when you use the data, qualitative and quantitative, from a social listening platform to inform strategy, to drive marketing, to inspire online conversation, all of which then creates more social media data that then informs the next strategy and drives more marketing, et cetera, et cetera. It should be a virtuous cycle, not a vacuum. But this is not easy, and we have seen companies fail in this regard pretty spectacularly, if I may use that phrase. This is just one example, and it's one that I would bet probably many of you on the phone are familiar with. We know that social media is pervasive, and we know that people use social media to talk about their feelings, both good and bad. And sometimes this comes together in a really interesting paradox. For example, in the Grammys this past year, the network CBS had a really interesting value proposition. They were going to air all of the glitz and the glam and everything that's happening via their all access pass. So across all devices, you could see the Grammys wherever you were, and it didn't matter. This is pretty exciting because networks have not yet fully embraced live streaming. But streaming services went down almost immediately after the show started. So you've got a whole bunch of people who were psyched about being able to watch the Grammys on screens other than television, who were suddenly not able to. But you can bet that they had access to Twitter. And so they started angry tweeting to CBS, voicing their complaints. Hey, what's up? I'm trying to watch your live stream. Thanks for nothing, as you can see there. But because CBS's operations were not fully integrated, you had the people running the streaming service not working, and people manning Twitter having to get all of these angry complaints. And then maybe somebody doing the media buying, what ended up happening was that a promoted tweet actually shows up at the top of the Twitter stream while people were using Twitter to complain. So if they had been using social listening in the right way, in a more real-time kind of way, they would have been able to catch this really odd customer experience. And they would know that when people are tagging you on Twitter in order to complain, that is not the right moment to have a pre-scheduled promoted tweet go out to that user. So that was a little bit about why social intelligence is so important. I want to talk a little bit about the technology landscape versus strategy. And before I dive into the content here, I'll give you this little preface. We have 4 analysts at Forrester who cover all aspects of social. And when we look through the questions that we get asked most often, 2 things come up. One is measurement, which is not the topic of this conversation, but social listening absolutely plays a big role in measurement. And the other one is, I need a vendor for X, can you help me? And quite often, as we dig into that question, we discover that they actually don't have a technology problem yet. They have a strategy problem. So many marketers think that they can plug a strategy hole with a piece of technology. And the fact of the matter is, really great technology can only get you so far. And if you want to avoid that problem of having to find a new vendor every year, the best way to do it is to make sure you understand what is a strategic problem that you need to solve and what is actually a technology problem. So that when you come to this incredibly complex social technology landscape, you know what it is that you're asking for. The best way to make sure that you know the right technology category that you need to look at is by having a strong strategic planning process. Those of you who are attending this webinar who are familiar with Forrester will undoubtedly have seen this process, the post process before. This is something we have been talking about for a decade, and we use it for many different kinds of strategic planning, though it did start with social, and that is one of the reasons we still use it. So when you approach social, we recommend starting with people, reviewing something like Forrester's social technographic score or your own data to understand the social behaviors of your audience as they exist sort of in the wild and also in relation to your brand. Then you move on to the O in post, and that stands for objectives. This is where you determine, based on what the behaviors of your audience are, what you want to accomplish that is accomplishable. So what are your objectives? What are your goals? The S in post is strategy. This is where you determine which social tactics best match your people and objectives. So what is the idea? Will it be some sort of Facebook campaign? Do I need a new Twitter presence? Am I going to launch social on my own website, for example? And then the T, the technology piece, comes all the way at the end. So now you dig into that incredibly complex social technology landscape where you choose the vendors and the tools that best support your strategy. Because social really does help you achieve objectives across the customer life cycle. So people can discover products and services via word of mouth and ads. They explore products and services via social tools on your own sites. They can begin and sometimes even complete transactions on social sites. They use social and sharing tools built into products and services. They ask for support on social networks and service communities. And then, of course, they use those core social networks to engage with you after they've become loyal customers. And so as you're thinking about how your audience uses social and what your goals are, as you get to that S and T piece, you start to figure out which social tools fit the phase going after. So this is how we sort of think about overall social strategy in a marketing department. How can social help support a marketing program across the customer life cycle? But here's where it gets interesting. You didn't see social listening or social intelligence on that previous slide because we believe that as complicated, overwrought, complex, and overlapping the social technology ecosystem is, We believe that social listening and social intelligence tools assist across the entire life cycle. In fact, we believe very strongly that regardless of whether or not you're going to engage directly in social, everybody needs social intelligence. It makes your company smarter. And here's what I mean. At its core, social listening platforms reveal customer insights, not just chatter. So table stakes here is really how you monitor for these insights. We spoke to a lot of people for our research about social intelligence, and one of the folks we spoke with was the digital innovation and business development leader at Hallmark Cards, who said to us, a social intelligence tool is the first social media tool that every marketer should own. And we totally agree with that. Social intelligence tools are really the backbone of not just your social marketing practice or even marketing in general, but actually your whole business, because it can inform marketing, product, and overall business strategy, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more. There are two other use cases that are incredibly important to the marketing team, marketing and market research. So first is messaging optimization. You can use these sort of reputation insights that you glean from social intelligence tools to figure out the impact of content on your audience and then to optimize its use across your marketing strategies. So for example, we spoke with a major car manufacturer who used social intelligence to surface 5 key barriers to the purchase of electric cars. And then that auto brand included the barriers in its messaging so that it could get its customers excited about how its cars overcome those barriers, and it positioned itself as a market leader. So it's not just sort of data in the background, but it's actually helping them optimize their messages. And then for market research, it's interesting because traditional market research really relies on things like quarterly surveys and voice of the customer programs and focus groups and that kind of stuff. And we're not suggesting that those go away. Rather, we're suggesting that social intelligence supplements this with large-scale audience analysis. So there are vendors that help companies understand brand conversations and the participants behind them. So it really is about using social insights to augment an already solid market research program. So technology landscape versus strategy. I hope I've convinced you that you need a very strong strategy in order to know how to implement the best technology to get the biggest bang for your social intelligence buck. But now I want to take the last 5 minutes here to pivot to something that we feel very strongly about, and that is that social listening, social intelligence, and social engagement contribute to business success, not just marketing or intelligence success. One of the reasons that we see companies stall in their maturity, their digital maturity overall, is because they keep social data contained. So you've got all of these departments who could benefit, but they stick social data in a silo, and nobody actually gets to see what those insights are, so they can't be rolled into their strategies. But instead, what they should do, and what the technology platforms that are out there allow you to do today, is to unleash this social data, to connect it not just to marketing, to PR, to competitive intelligence and customer support, but to then take those initial connections and seed the intelligence, seed the insights to all of these business functions that you see on this slide. Operations, human resources, analytics, media planning, compliance. Everybody can technically have access to the intelligence and business insights. And then it's just a matter of making sure that culturally the company takes those insights seriously and they are brought to bear on your strategies. Now, this is some quantitative data that we collected during our Q4 Global Enterprise Social Listening Platforms Wave, and we asked the social listening platform users who were part of the customer references for that wave, what are your current initiatives and goals for social listening? Now, certainly the top three are the most obvious, and they're the most classic: brand monitoring and brand health, measuring campaign success, gaining a better understanding of customers. But as the list goes on, you see some brands are starting to think about everything from inspiring content for campaigns to product innovation. For example, customer care teams have been using social technologies to service customers for a long time, but now social listening is pairing with those social engagement tools to preemptively delight customers. This is one of my favorite examples that I've come across in my recent research. This is from Rackspace. Social customer service isn't anything new, but Rackspace has really taken this to the next level. They have a very well integrated program where they use social intelligence to identify customers who are having a problem who may not have even reached out to Rackspace specifically yet. But because their systems are integrated, they can take an anonymous Twitter handle and figure out who the actual customer is. And if the problem is something they can fix, Rackspace will actually take that data from their social intelligence platform, figure out who the customer is, fix the problem, solve it completely before they reach out to the customer. Then they'll reach out to the customer and say, hey, we saw you had this problem, it's already fixed. That is the definition of surprise and delight, but it is also having an impact on the bottom line, because they are able to go back and take a look at these interactions from 5 years ago all the way up to today. And because they have that customer data, they have been able to measure that in 83% of cases, monthly spend has increased in the time since that bad interaction. So this is not just about retention, this is about account growth, and it all starts with social intelligence. Product teams are also using social insights for feedback and product development. Brands are just asking fans and followers what they think, and customers feel totally confident about speaking openly. Alex and Ani, for example, the jewelry retailer, asks their social audience what charms they want to see next before they've developed them. That means that their customers are already invested in the product before it's even developed, let alone launched. And I've got Zoolander here because I'm not allowed to mention the brand, but I will say this: a very high-end fashion brand, an industry that has actually been built up on the basis of not asking anybody up front what they think because they are seen as the trendsetters. A brand in this industry has started monitoring social media conversation in a given season to try to predict what will be popular in fashion the following season. So a very interesting change in a notoriously closed industry there. Now, once you really get this idea of social intelligence supporting your business strategy embraced through your organization, you can use social to ignite what we at Forrester are calling post-digital marketing. And what that means is that digital has become so much infused across everything we do in our lives, let alone our businesses, that to call out what is digital isn't relevant or even possible anymore. And that means that marketers need an entirely new worldview, where everything they do is shaped around being human, acting inclusively and with empathy for their customers, being helpful, solving customer problems instead of always hawking product, and being handy, using data and insights like social intelligence to be able to react to customers and change with context. I think I'm talking a little bit long here, so I'm going to go through these very quickly. I would be happy to give more detail to anyone who's interested in these examples. Just tweet at me, and I'd be happy to share some more info. Taco Bell is our example here of being human because they take a create, co-create, curate approach to their marketing. What you see here are a bunch of Taco Bell fans who have created some absolutely incredible content assets, essentially, including fans who created dresses out of sauce packs. It is really impressive. You should totally Google that. Secondly, being helpful. Red Roof Inns, they've actually won plenty of awards for their social intelligence strategies. And then in 2015, they grew 350% in new franchise agreements. And the correlation there is not accidental because the vice president of marketing and digital believes so strongly that if he says his brand is going to stand for something, he needs to make sure that they deliver on that, that he uses the insights he gets through social intelligence to be a part of the conversation with design and construction for the actual hotel rooms. So an incredibly practical application. And finally, being handy. As post-digital marketers become agile enough to accommodate dynamic user needs, one-to-one marketing, which is already really hard, will move to one-to-moment marketing, which is really even harder. That's what this is an example of. It's Gatorade's Smart Cap bottle that actually paces an individual athlete's hydration in the moment based on detected sweat levels. Now, these are influencers, so you've got incredibly smart data paired with influencers using a product that is totally customizable. If that isn't going to reveal some pretty fascinating data to be used throughout the business, I don't know what is. So just to recap here, we believe that social for a brand starts with social insights. You need to use POST or some other strategic framework to align your strategy with tool selection because technology is not a replacement for strategy. But once you've done that, social insights can help you improve functions around your entire business and can also help you embrace the post-digital future. And with that, I will hand it back over to you, Will.
Thank you very much, Melissa. That was fantastic. There were some real nuggets there that I enjoyed. I love the human, helpful, and handy. That's good. A good mantra for any marketing team. It's definitely one we want to adhere to here at Brandwatch. So what we're going to do then, and one quick reminder as well, do tweet us or use the webinar functionality to ask questions. We've already got some great questions in, but we want to be challenged. So we want to be helpful and handy, don't we, Melissa? So give us some good questions. What I want to do now is dive deeper into consumer insights, because there was one of the points that Melissa made was that from their quantitative survey at the back end of last year, 33% of customers, that's you guys, that's us, that's the market, said that we want to use social intelligence to gain a better understanding of our customers. And another 17%, or potentially the same, some of the same people, but 17% of people said product innovation, understanding opportunities to innovate around products is another great thing from a social intelligence point of view. So let's dig into some of that stuff. At its core, social listening platforms reveal customer insights. So let's look at how. Now, we've been spending some time at Brandwatch with our consumer insights community, and what it strikes us as, and this is pretty simple, but broadly, I expect that on the webinar today, there are two groups. There's those of us who are kind of all-rounder digital marketers, and then there are some of you who work very specifically in social analytics or consumer insights. And so in that field, the work of that market research community is essentially can be broken down into these 4 steps. Your day, your week, your month consists of collecting data, so we need to get the adequate sources. That might be with clipboards and surveys, it might be through online, it might be through social intelligence, focus groups. There are many vehicles for that. Then you process the data. This is where things in the digital world like R and Tableau and data lakes and exciting data science terminology get used. Then the magic bit, the bit that starts to uncover the real value, because the business, the client, the customer, they don't care about any of that. What they want is this bit. Step 3, what are the insights? What are you actually telling me that's going to help me? And then 4, sometimes the most pedestrian, but definitely where a lot of the value gets left on the table, is how do we activate that insight? So many of you working in these functions are producing reports and PDFs and insights that don't get acted on. And when the magic really happens is when it gets acted on. So in fact, it's one of the most important steps, even though it can feel a bit like just admin or operations. So that's the day in the life of a consumer insights professional. Where does social intelligence fit? Well, I'm biased clearly, and I'm still trying to be human, helpful, and handy here. But genuinely, we believe that great social intelligence fits across all of that. Social intelligence helps you collect new data. It helps you discover a particular unprompted, raw, qualitative consumer voice. You can process that data. You can use platforms like Brandwatch to use rules and categories and to apply machine learning to start to synthesize that data, to get away from the crowded boxes and buckets full of stuff into the what's actually useful. And then you can start to discover insights and then look at activating those. And so what I want to do is get really practical, give you some customer stories and some examples that I hope will be useful. And when we talk to our clients who are in consumer insights, what you tell us is, things that keep me up at night is foxes. They're quite noisy in my local neighborhood. Writing emails. I'm not sure how many of you do this, but I find myself actually literally writing an email in my head. That's not literal, but it's the use of literal in conversation. And noisy neighbors. But apparently, if you're in consumer insights, what keeps you up is really understanding customers, obviously, but working more efficiently. We're in a kind of data now environment. Everybody wants everything yesterday. It's a real-time world. We're getting increasingly short-term. And so we need to figure out how can we get these answers quickly. Then there's this activate point, and this keeps coming back. You need to be able to get not just the answer into the right hands, but you need that person to feel compelled to act on it. You want the merchandiser in store to change how the windows are dressed. You want the purchaser to buy a different kind of patio furniture based on that consumer feedback. You want the CEO to really take the check-in process that your airline has seriously because it's just absolutely leaching Net Promoter Score and goodwill. And then there's this other sort of bonus question which came up at a breakfast event that we ran a couple of weeks ago, which is as a researcher, and I think this is good for all of us in marketing to remember, is you want the right quality of question to be asked of you, because if you ask silly questions of social intelligence or any form of market research, you're going to get kind of garbage in, garbage out. So we want really, really high quality questions to give really interesting, useful answers to. So I'm going to go through those in a bit more detail. So there are 4 challenges that we're going to talk about here. The first is, how do I collect the complete voice of the customer? So, you need more than one channel of data. Voice of the customer itself, if you're not aware, is a whole market in its own right, and there are companies and practitioners who are hoovering in data from call centers. They're crunching mass survey information to try and understand this voice of the consumer. And that's great, and it's robust, but it can be cumbersome, and it can take time. It's often very physical. It's often offline as well as online and digital. And of course, we've got this constant challenge in market research, which is that consumers, and that's me as well, and you too, is we don't mean what we say, and we don't say what we mean. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you an answer that I think reflects how I want to be seen in the world and how I want to see myself, not necessarily unprompted. And that problem exists with social as well. So you want this 360-degree view. And now the opportunity here with social intelligence, which the community is starting to understand more and more, is that this raw voice that's now available through the social web can give us beautiful verbatims. It can give us really nuanced grains of sand, real down to the mention level insights from real consumers, and at a quantitative scale. So it sounds almost too good to be true. You can get lots of it, and when you want to, you can drill into lots of it to actually understand what Betty in Chicago really thought of that particular pizza. And on a good day, it can be fast and cost effective, and with lots of caveats, it can be accurate. So social intelligence can play a role here, and I want to just kind of give you an example, as promised, that brings that to life. This was a large project that a major European retailer, a Brandwatch client, undertook, using social intelligence to augment and accelerate some of their classic insights work. They wanted to understand women over the age of 50. They wanted to understand, what are they into, what are their interests, what is their voice, what do they care about, talk about, and in particular, as a bonus for this particular project, they were curious about what kind of new product lines they might be able to develop. So using Brandwatch, they created this panel of a specific demographic. And this is a great technique, and we've got resources that describe how to do this, but I really recommend it. So you can create your online social panel. Just like we have panels for TV viewing, you can create your own. You can then start to categorize data using rules and categories to understand what are they talking about, from family to politics, music, film, arts and craft, exercise. And this really helped this major European retailer profile their audience. And it helped them not only understand and inform their marketing, but it came up with, as I hinted, a new product line. So in this particular example, exercise wear for the over 50s, tailored to the types of activity that they enjoyed, this particular segment enjoyed, and in particular to their body concerns. So a really interesting example of how you can get at the voice of the customer through social intelligence. Secondly, we live in this world of better, faster, stronger, show me the data now. And good data work, good market research, good consumer insights takes time, especially when we're layering and blending the different data sets that we're working with. So you've got those pressures, but you've got that diligence and that integrity on the other hand. The benefit here is that social intelligence can be more readily available. So if you've got access to this kind of functionality, you can aggregate and analyze much more quickly. And you can get into the human part, the pattern recognition, the sifting, which is still essential. You can get into that more quickly. So this is a challenge for you guys doing this work. And there are technical functionalities that Brandwatch and competitive platforms can offer you to help solve that. But to get into the actual story, this is an example I really, really like, because we're hearing this a lot actually, which is clients are trying to figure out often, who's a great spokesperson for our brand, or who are some talent that we can associate ourselves with, or actually pretty similar, who are the influencers that we want to reach out to engage with this particular campaign. This is a very famous makeup brand, a beauty brand that many of you will be either wearing or have used their products at some point today. And what they did with social intelligence, these guys, was quickly filter the 30 potential spokespeople that they had. And I love this because it's just practical. It's not ephemeral, it's not conceptual. It's like, okay, there are 30 names that we might want to associate with. Let's look at what social intelligence can tell us in a much more rapid way than done via, say, a survey. And then using rules, they set up the desirable traits. So how well do each of these 30 index for these different criteria? And that helped them get from 30 to 3 really rapidly. And they could then have a really useful conversation as a brand about fit and chemistry based on data. And they also were able to mitigate some risk by checking for how these people behave online and what kind of communities and followers they have, and were there any sort of threats or risks associated with partnering with them. So I really like that from a kind of fast consumer insights point of view. The fourth part of that consumer insights sort of value chain that we looked at with the 4 bubbles was, how do you get people to actually act on the insight that you come up with? You've potentially done lots of work by this point. You sweated and bled and argued and debated, and now you've got your killer moment and you want someone to actually do something. Now, how we get that to happen is really, really challenging and interesting. One of the ways that you can get people to act on stuff, in our experience and our clients, is get it out of paper, get it out of the inbox, make it physical, and use the shininess, use our visual hardwiring as humans and our desire for stories, and use things like Visio from Brandwatch to bring to life the particular insights. From a practical point of view, though, I want to get away from us and back to a really great practical story. This is a friend of ours. He's a fantastic client and has been a client at several major brands now. This was at the time he was working for one of the major British telecommunications companies, and what they were seeing through social intelligence was a hell of a lot of feedback that I think sums up our modern age, which is we're all ordering loads of stuff online, and packages, there've never been so many in the world, and those poor logistics people are constantly humping bags of boxes to our front doors. But for this particular cable company, we would say router in the UK, you might say router if you're in Australia or America, you couldn't fit it through the letterbox. So every single delivery was having to leave one of those frustrating notes that make you want to facepalm, where it's like, no, I don't want to pick up the package, please come back now. So taking this data, they were able to shortcut traditional new product development cycles, shortcut the year to 18 months that kind of thing would typically take, and show very convincingly to all different stakeholders in the organization, if we can redesign this router to get through the average letterbox, we're going to, one, take away a massive pain point, and two, really enhance our customer experience. A bit like Melissa said, solving those problems, I think it was the Rackspace example, doesn't just take away the negative, it creates uplift and strength and loyalty and, in the long term, extra value in those customer relationships. So for me, this is a great example where an organization was able to take something, a what, from social and turn it into a very powerful now what, and act on it. Now, a bonus challenge that doesn't quite fit those other three is that, and it came up at this breakfast that I mentioned before, is that one of the challenges for us, whether we're designers, whether we're user experience people, or consumer insights professionals, or marketers in general, is it's all about the brief. A good brief will get a great response. A poor brief, a bad question, doesn't really set us up for success. And so what we really need to do is make sure we're getting upstream of the question we're being asked from social intelligence. So, social research can be really flexible, and you can iterate, you can resegment and slice and dice as you go, but it's much better to start off on the right foot. I love this example. I also happen to love this woman, although I don't know her, but like you, I'm a fan. But Bay would never suffer from this problem. One of our clients was asked by her internal stakeholder, I would love you to use social intelligence to find out what people don't like about products for dry and frizzy hair or something like that. And it was, our client could immediately tell that her client had got a bit too far down the road and was being a bit too specific. And so what our client was able to do is say, well, what's the problem you're really trying to solve here? What's the outcome that will be most valuable to you? And by pushing back in a helpful, consultative way, what our client was able to do is to move further upstream. And actually what this brand manager wanted was new product development. They wanted MPD. They had a hunch that dry hair might be the challenge, but they didn't know. And so on a kind of whim, it's like let's throw social at it. Instead, our client was able to change that conversation, get upstream, and ask, therefore, much more rich, interesting questions of social intelligence. And as you will remember from Melissa's part of this presentation, there are opportunities across a whole scope of organizational factors that we can use with social intelligence. So that's the sort of bonus thought that we wanted to leave you with before wrapping this thing up. So hopefully you've got some practical examples there. You've been refreshed on how social can help from a business point of view from Melissa's contribution, and then I hope I've given you some practical examples about how you can better understand customers, work more efficiently, activate insights, and so on. Lastly, to finish, we always have to look at the future, and one of the most interesting things that came up at this breakfast event that we ran recently was about neuroscience and about cognitive and behavioral decision-making science. Many of you will have come across behavioral economics. It's quite trendy now in marketing. But this particular speaker, Richard Shotton from Zenith Optimedia, was wowing us in the audience with examples of how his work and his team's work have been applying academic study, often 30, 40 years old, in how we really make decisions. So not what we say, it's back to that quote of we don't really mean what we say and we don't say what we mean. Not what we say, but what we do. And I think this is a really rich area for all of us in this community to explore is how can we understand behavior as much as what people are saying in social? How can we understand what they're doing? And I think that's a really fruitful kind of next frontier for us, just to tickle your brains a little bit. So hopefully you've got some takeaways, and I'm priming you again. Please do give us a question at Brandwatch or in the webinar functionality. The key takeaways, I won't read them out. They're there in front of you. So we'd love to get your questions. Okay, I've got a question for you, Melissa. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Good. So this question is, what do you see in the future of social intelligence?
Oh gosh, I'll give you what my biggest hope for social intelligence is. The platforms are becoming super smart, and the technology is including connections, whether that's through API or other kinds of direct connections, or through actual sort of partnerships with other kinds of marketing technology and enterprise technology. The future for social intelligence to me is about the seamless bi-directional integration of social insights with other crucial business platforms, whether that's a CRM system or business analytics, or whatever else that your company might use in a bespoke way. That's what I hope is the more near-term future. The far-term future, I think, is about incorporating social intelligence into something like machine learning or artificial intelligence powered automated business processes. So there's a sort of short-term, long-term view.
Lovely, thank you. Do I have anything to add? Ooh, I've got some near-term stuff. Near-term for me is lots of people saying they're doing it. They're not doing it very well. We would include ourselves in that. Really good image analytics. I think private messaging networks pose a very interesting challenge for the marketing community as a whole. I think Chinese social networks and sort of broadening out that international scope. Again, lots of people say they do it, but do they do it very well? In the future, yeah, the more machine learning can be applied to these problems, the better. So the faster we can get to the so what. You know, push a button, get an insight. Wouldn't that be great? And that question is much appreciated and was from, I'm just scrolling back through my Twitter feed, it was from #ityo, cool name. All right, next question. This is from Jason Thorne at Thorny Media. In the social intelligence lifecycle, when and how does the conversion to actual #sales take place, please? Melissa, that's for you again.
Sure. It completely depends on the company, the industry, the sales cycle, and the culture. In a perfect world, because it is a virtuous cycle, whoever is responsible for sales is using that data to optimize their strategy all the time. So it's not a funnel intentionally, right? So there isn't a moment where suddenly social leads to a sale, there is direct attribution, you quantify it, and it's done. I alluded to measurement when I was talking about talking through some of my slides. You know, this idea of direct attribution to sales is very difficult in social for a variety of reasons, but we actually believe in a measurement approach that we call unified marketing impact analytics, which is actually about combining the best of attribution modeling with the best of marketing mix modeling and seeing how all of your marketing channels, all of your sources of data contribute to overall business value, including sales, lead gen, and revenue. So it isn't so much a direct sort of straight line. Once you've got great social data, then you go here, and then there's a sale. It's more like, how does social intelligence as an underpinning contribute to all of the stages of your customer's life cycle that leads to revenue generation? So I'm sorry I don't have a very quick pat answer for you, but that actually is how we think about it at Forrester. What do you think, Will?
Oh, yeah, throw it back. I'll tell you what I think. I'm seeing our clients doing very interesting work where they ignore the question of social media marketing, and they do what Jason is asking about, and you were speaking to, Melissa, of like actual sales, and are using things like location, are using things like retail data, sales data, web data, and blending it with this kind of social intelligence data. So you can't do this in a silo. We love it when our clients are taking the Brandwatch stuff and blurring it and blending it and weaving it into other data in other platforms, and we want to just help that travel and that happen, because whether it's an auto brand, I can think of a global auto brand who is understanding the actual conversion to sales, the actual impact of advocacy online. They're then looking at the kind of customer's life cycle and their retail experience and which model and color. And I think there are people who are doing this in really interesting ways. The challenge for this community, which I'm part of too, is the people doing the best work don't want to talk about it because they've got a competitive advantage. And it's the right question, Jason, but yeah, the best way to answer it is do it, in my humble opinion. Thank you for the question. Which question shall I ask these next? I am going to go for, have you had or heard of any experiences where the social intelligence is contradictory to other research? That's from Christopher. Any thoughts on that, Melissa?
Sort of. So I would say I haven't seen anything where where social intelligence reveals something that's totally contradictory. I have seen examples where social intelligence reveals something that is a little bit tangential or a little bit deeper. So, for example, certain kinds of market research studies based on the way questions are asked or workflows are shown might lead you to a conclusion that millennial moms like shirts with peplums. This is an example that I just recently saw. Well, okay, that's good to know. So do you just throw a bunch of like peplum shirts at people? Well, no, because the social intelligence revealed that the reason this kept coming up is because you're looking at millennial moms who are often having a part of their body that they would like to make appear more flattering. And that is what they think the peplum style does for them. Well, this fashion brand said, wait a second, we have a product that is specifically for that use case. So it isn't contradictory, it just adds new dimension that changed the strategy. That's what I see most of.
I like that. I've got a very quick example that I'm going to smash out quickly before we wrap up this webinar. Global ice cream brand, everyone on this webinar has devoured it by the gallon. The accepted wisdom inside this very brand-driven company was, this is an impulse purchase. And that dictated everything. So what happened was the company was doing all kinds of things around discounting, i.e. giving away money because it thought that a good discount at the right point in the supermarket would lead to the sale, because that was the logic. What social intelligence found from a consumer insights point of view was people were starting to talk about it 2 or 3 days before the weekend. Ooh, I can't wait to destroy that tub of ice cream this weekend. And it turned out it wasn't an impulse purchase. It was, and I love these words, premeditated. And that totally turned on its head brand strategy, marketing mix, pricing, the full business kind of orientation on that insight. So I love that example. We're going to wrap up now. Melissa, thank you very much. You are fantastic. And you can follow Melissa R. Parrish on Twitter, or if you can't or not sure about spelling, follow Brandwatch, and we've been tweeting her. And one quick plug from Brandwatch. I hope that we've been human, helpful, and handy. If you are in EMEA or you're capable of flying there, we are holding a conference on October the 20th and 21st. We're going to have all sorts of awesome speakers. It's going to be fantastic. We're all going to learn from one another. So a bit of a shout out for that. If you're a Brandwatch client, we really need to see you there. Talk to your account manager. Thank you everyone for your attention. We will be following up with an email with the slides and the recording. Thank you again, Melissa.
Thank you.
And have a good day, everybody.